I'll start with exploding topics, Brian. What's your take on templates, and how much would you say you use them in publishing on exploding topics, or or you used them? Maybe I should be using past tense now.
Yeah, templates were a big part of the growth of that site, honestly. And it's one of the reasons that despite being newer on the scene and being in a really competitive space, got more traffic ultimately than Backlinko. And a big reason for that was because I didn't stumble upon templates in terms of just doing templates until later in Backlinko. In the early days, I was experimenting and trying this format, and I did that traditional process that most people use, where you find a keyword, you figure out the best content format for that, whether it's a list or a case study or a guide or whatever, and then you create an outline or a brief, and then you write it up and publish it. That's the process that I went through, and that process is fine, but it's really slow and it's almost impossible to scale because you're starting from scratch every single time you write
Hmm.
something new. And that was the light bulb moment for me, where with Exploring Topics, I was running it on the side at first. I didn't have a ton of time. I didn't have an editor. So it was like we found a couple templates that work and just scaled them up. And I would say 90% of our content, if not more, were from a handful of templates.
Hmm. So like 3 to 5 templates
Yeah.
when you say handful. Uh-huh. Yeah. What team members did you have in the beginning when you were starting to scale and already leaning into templates? You said you didn't have an editor. I assume you were doing a lot of the work yourself. Who else were some of the first few people or team roles helping you in the beginning?
Basically freelance writers at first,
Uh-huh.
where once I sort of discovered a template, it was a matter of finding a writer who was adept at understanding this is what should be in the template, this is what should not be in the template, and basically be able to fill in the blanks. Like if you could do that, you were probably a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you weren't, that if you came from that background of like, I need to really dig into the best brief and how to structure this, it wasn't really how we approach things. It was like, here's a template that we already have published. You can see a live version. You need to create something similar, but on this topic or around this keyword. And some people were really good at it. And we just kept scaling with them because as they did more of them, they got better at it, right? Because like, say they were writing a list of startups, over time they would discover resources that were really helpful for finding these startups, and also discovering details about them, how many employees they have, what their last funding round was, and so they could pump them out even faster. So that helped to scale as well, as each person was sort of eventually assigned a template that they specialized in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, kind of like with Victor for the stats pages for Backlinko, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, he was amazing to work with. We could just assign him topics, and he would take the existing articles, make it similar, and write a bunch of them. Then help get backlink or more and more backlinks. So how did the team change later when you scaled, when you grew bigger? The content and SEO team, did it remain primarily focused on writers, or did you
Yeah.
add some team roles?
No, you didn't need them. Like that's the beauty of templates. You don't.
Mm,
There's fewer steps in the process. Like, granted, I kind of cheated because I was the editor in chief, right? Like in a bigger organization, you would have one person do probably topic research, keyword research. You'd have another person assign things to the writers and sort of collaborate with them. You might have an editor as well. I was sort of doing all of those. So, but at the end of the day, the key to scaling was just hiring more writers to write this stuff. And then in the later days, when we had like 650 posts on the blog, it was more having someone update them. So we needed that second step too. But in terms of the early days, it was just we found someone who could do a good job. We would just keep sending them assignments. And eventually, because you know how it is with freelancers, most of them have sort of a shelf life before they go on to do something else or whatever.
yeah.
And then we try to find someone else. But the leverage point or the bottleneck was really just finding people that could just get an assignment and deliver it pretty much good to go. And because they're templates, you don't need a ton of editing, right? Because unlike a piece that they send you that could be infinite different options of how to approach it, it's a template. So there's not much wiggle room in terms of decision making. The only decisions they make are like what to include, like in a list post, what to include, and then writing style and things like that, which are very easy to give before they even start, and then coach them on as they go. So the bottleneck for us was being able to find that writer, and then keep them around and happy long enough.
Hmm. How long typically would you say you were able to keep him around for?
I would say some were literally like as short as 5 posts, and others were with us the whole time for like 3 years, publishing,
Mm.
basically delivering a post a
Yeah.
week for years. So it really depends. We treated everyone the same. We gave people pretty huge flexibility on deadlines, paid them well. So it was really a matter. So that way, there's no room for it. It's like it's up to them. If you want to work with us, we think we're good to work with and we're fair and whatever. But if you don't, that's totally fine. So it wasn't really a. I think it was just a matter of they have other opportunities or whatever. Like some people went to like work full time and they didn't have time to do it. But we had at least 2 or 3 who worked for us for 2.5 years straight and delivered like every single week on time.
I love those people. Love those people. And then for
Me
updates,
too.
as you, yeah, as you said, and I mean they love you too, right? If you're an anchor client who's steady and consistent about the money they can make with you, they love you back. So everybody's super happy. Um,
Of
and
course.
now for how you said that once you got to a higher volume of content and you were getting more into updates, would it be the same people updating the existing content, or would it be a different type of person?
I Well, that's a lesson I learned the hard way. I did make it a different person because I was like, we can't get this person, take a person off of writing to update because then we won't publish as much. And so we'll hire a different person to come in. And there's pros and cons to having a different person edit and update existing content that wrote it. The good part is they come at it from a different point of view, right? So if you're writing about, biggest trends in the banking industry, and the first person wrote something, and then the second person might have experience in that area and they can add something or whatever, that's good. But you need someone that's actually written that template many, many times to be able to edit it. It's like anything in life. You need a coach who needs to have played the sport. So what we ended up doing was just taking the person that was writing them and saying, let's decrease your volume a little bit. And instead of writing a post a week, maybe you write one every 2 week or 10 days, and you can spend more time updating. And that way, it's not necessarily
Hmm.
they're updating their own work, even though they are. The most important thing is they're updating the template that they're familiar with.
Yeah. So let's get into those templates some more. They sound like they're a level up from a content brief, especially in this approach of how you then don't need to start from scratch. And you said that what would serve as templates would be the content that's already live on the website. Let's say somebody's writing a
Okay.
new one and they look at a
Yeah.
template, as in something that's already live on your site. I'm trying to think about how they were figuring out which parts need to stay the same, which parts can be replaced with the new information, um, as opposed to what you told them specifically should be kept. Like how much did they figure out on their own, and how specific were you in defining the template?
They figured out pretty much 100%. I was more or less like, here's a template, or here's an existing post or several. Here are a few things to keep an eye out for. That's it. Because there wasn't even that much judgment, honestly, because let's say it was a list of newsletters, which we have. That's one template that we used, was like best technology newsletters, best business newsletters, right? For those, the first one that we made had all the fields filled in, which was like the number of subscribers, when they started, how often they send it, um, things like that, and then the description. So the second person that takes that on, they're free to add another field if they think, oh, there's another thing that could be added. But for the most part, it's name of the newsletter, screenshot, those fields, and then a brief description. So there isn't much guesswork. Some other templates are a bit more open-ended, but the more you can just close it and be like, it's really almost like programmatic SEO. The difference is it actually includes human writing and human insight, the better. So they're almost like fields that you just swap in and out. So there shouldn't be a ton of decision making in that regard.
Hmm. And today, with AI getting better, are you considering it or already using it maybe um, to write based on templates?
No, not yet, because my feeling on that is a lot beyond the scope of this interview. But in general, I feel like everyone can use AI, so it's sort of not a competitive advantage to use it. So the competitive advantage is finding someone that actually knows their stuff and they can include that in the content. So even though it's a template, I want to make it clear these people are writing good stuff. Like I'm
Hmm.
making it sound like it's just, oh, they can just fill. It's not like copying and pasting. They actually have to have insight, especially for certain templates where you need to have judgment about the field itself, like fintech or SaaS or whatever. You need to really be insightful and no, and you can't BS your way through it. But when it comes to maybe writing about startups, the description could be generic, but I want to make sure it's not. And AI, what they're going to do, if you say, okay, AI, write about this startup, blah, blah, blah is a startup, it's going to be way too wordy and it's going to be way over the top how amazing they are. That's what AI just LLMs just tend to do when they describe startups, which is one of our main templates. They tend to really hype it up. Same thing with basically anything. They tend to really be overly positive and overly wordy. And we're kind of going for the opposite approach with a lot of our content. We want to be really objective and we want to be really concise. So it just wasn't worth it to edit that down. I rather we should rather have someone just write it from scratch and it'd be good from the get go.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 Makes a lot of sense. Maybe this gets better now. Daydream, the company I'm working with on the course, they have this approach where they use variables. Uh, so you straight up put variables in the content that get changed, and then those pieces of information can also get updated later on once there's a need, once enough time has passed. And also, one thing they battled with in the beginning was how it was too wordy. They had to make sure it's more concise than LLMs usually are. Um, and now I'm also thinking, Brian, uh, I get your newsletter and I look at it because it's valuable. It's one of the newsletters I read in order to know what's going on in the world. I like these a lot of relevant stuff. How much traffic do you get, if you don't mind sharing, um, relatively, from organic search compared to the newsletter? If you want to share the
Oh, it's
ratio,
way more. I mean, it's 40 to 1 in organic search. I mean, because
40 to
the
1.
traffic, yeah, or traffic from the newsletter is not a big source of traffic. Most people just read it. Like because we don't like the values in the
Mm-hmm.
newsletter itself, right? We're not saying pushing people to
Mm-hmm.
something. Like with Backlinko, it was a bit different, depending on the newsletter. But a lot of them were like, "Hey, just publish a new guide. Here's a link to it." So that would send tens of thousands of people through that link. When it's not quite the same for
Mm-hmm.
exploring topics because it's more like you open it, you get the value there, and you can click through and see the chart, and we link to some other stats and things like that. But there's really not a huge reason to click through. So yeah, it's not a huge source of direct traffic. It's more of a branding play that people open it, they see the brand, they see our trends, get reminded we exist, and then we have a little pitch to our paid version in the bottom.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. Cool. Um, and now you hinted a little bit about keyword research and how when you do publish with templates, it's a little different. You're not starting from scratch. You don't have a brief. So how do you pick topics, or, for instance, startups to write about?
Yeah.
Is it based on the data from your tool, or how does that decision get made about what gets published next month?
Yeah, it's a little bit of judgment, but it's mostly just logical. Like that's the cool one of the best things about templates is there isn't a huge decision-making process because you're trying to hit everything. You're trying to scale. So for example, with startups, I think the first one we did was maybe fintech startups, and that did well. So then we did ed tech startups, and then we did maybe SaaS and then beauty and then whatever. And now we have like 130 of those. So it's not so much you even have to do keyword research. You just logically think, what's every industry that exists that we can include? Like you don't even need to use a keyword research tool, really. It's just the logical progression of what you would put in that field and just flip it around as many times as you can. It's the same thing with another template we have, which are trends. Like we have beauty trends, startup trends, economic trends, business trends. So those maybe require a bit more judgment because you need to be creative. You can't just go like, oh, what are 100 industries that exist? You have to actually think, okay, so AI trends, and use your brain a little bit. But for the most part, you're just plugging in different industries. And logically, you're going to hit like 100 something of those if you keep going.
Mhm. So would you agree or disagree if I say that you can mostly skip keyword research or maybe even entirely skip it because you have the scale? Like the scale allows
Yeah.
you to be more intuitive about your decisions just because you're covering so much anyway?
Yeah, I would say that's correct. I mean, you can still do it, and we still did it because like, say you generate all of those, um, 100 industries, you do need to prioritize which one should you do first, and that's where traditional keyword research can come into play because you're like, well, this one's really competitive, this one's not competitive, this one gets a lot of search volume, this has a high cost per click, so there's more commercial intent, whatever. But that's not how we did it. Like the templates, this sounds a lot more strategic than it was. It was like flying by the seat of your pants, honestly. Like it was just spinning plates and it all came together. Like sometimes it was someone would email me, a writer, and would say, oh, I finished this post. What's the next assignment? And I'd be like, oh, damn. So I had to like I had to find another industry for them to write about right then. So it wasn't like this strategic endeavor. It was just that instead of the person saying, I need an assignment, and you go into a keyword research tool and just go through the rabbit hole there, it's easy to be like, okay, well, they work on this template. What's an industry we haven't covered? Okay, here you go. So it really takes like a minute to come up with a topic, if that.
Hmm.
And that'd be something that's really good for AI
Amazing.
because you could say, okay, or an LLM say, here is, we're working on this template about startups in different industries. Here's four that we already have. Come up with 50 more that, are other industries.
Yeah.
Now it's probably going to only do 30 and say it was 50, but it'll still at least give you some ideas.
Yeah, I was thinking that, yeah, that if you want to expand, that would be a good use for AI, expand the ideas list.
Yeah.
Uh, awesome, Brian. I won't keep you longer. I told you it'd be about 20 minutes. Thank you very much. This is gold. There's a lot of tidbits here and very, very inspiring. Also, just very enjoyable for me to watch the journey that Exploring Topics has been on and how fast it went. Uh, that's quite inspiring. Well, thank you very much for your time, Brian. I hope we
No
talk again
problem.
soon.